Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Writer's Parachute. We are guiding author and writer dreams to a perfect landing. We have with us today Debra Clewer. She's a very special guest and someone I've been trying to get on the Writer's Parachute for a very long time. She is the puppet lady, as you can see behind me, but we're also going to talk to her about her new book, her new children's book, Offer Super Sleuth, The Case of the Missing Mogies. But of course, we have a little housekeeping to do up front. And of course, we're going to get to the topic of the week before we do the interviews. So of course, we want you to smash that like button. Go ahead and subscribe on YouTube or on your favorite podcast channel. And of course, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Writer Parachute. That is Writer Parachute with no S. So let's get to the topic of the week. So we have been devoting season 2 to reviews. Reviews are king. They are very critical to authors and writers. So we've been talking about the different ways to ask for reviews. We've been talking about the different kinds of reviews, the different ways you can list reviews, and the ways you can promote and get those reviews to get you the audience that you want. So today, we're going to talk about how you can get more reviews. And interestingly enough, it's about being a good reviewer. If you are a good reviewer, if you are reviewing other books, especially the books in your genre, you're going to get noticed by those authors and readers of those books. Because trust me, if they're reading your book and they're looking for something similar, they're going to look at the reviewers that may be authors and see what they have to say. So make sure when you're doing that review, you list yourself as author of and list your book, because that might just get their curiosity working. Goodreads is an excellent place to do this, but you can also do it on Amazon. Make sure you check their consumer guidelines that they have about reviews. You don't want to be exchanging author reviews with another author, but if you find a book you like and you do a review, that's perfectly fine. So there's that. And then you have all the other platforms where your books are available that don't have as strict a review guidelines as Amazon. So you can list those there. You can also save a portion or a section of your Facebook page or your website for books I recommend and list your reviews there. So I hope you take advantage of some of these other outside the box thoughts about reviews, about reviewing other books in your genre, other books that you think are similar to your book, and take advantage of their platforms while you're at it. So that's all we have for today on that topic. Of course, we don't go into too much detail. If you would like more information, you can reach out to us here at the Writer's Parachute at thewritersparachute.com. Leave us a question. If we get enough, we'll do a special episode with a little more in-depth information. So let's get on to our interview today. I am so excited to have Debra with us today. Debra Clewer. We're going to be talking about puppets, of course, and we're going to be talking about her new book, Offer Super Sleuth, The Case of the Missing Mogies. This is book 1 in her new series. So Debra is a wife, mother, and grandmother, and great-grandmother of 1 and soon to be 2. She remarried after her second husband, or her first husband, John, died in 2016. She's a volunteer working with children since 1986, including 3 years at a local elementary school. She has self-published 3 middle grade novels from 2017 to 2019, plus 3 short stories in the children's anthologies in 2019 and 21. Also some short adult novels published with Reedsy. Her latest title is a middle grade chapter book, a fun story involving a Persian cat detective and a nefarious gang of rats. Debra became interested in writing for children after observing their struggle with reading and comprehension in the classroom. Her aim is to encourage and ignite kids to read and imagine. Debra lives in Southern Australia in the state of Tasmania. Welcome to the Writer's Parachute, Debra. I'm so excited to have you. How are you today?
Thank you, Donna. I'm really well. Yes, I live in Tasmania, and many people would remember the Warner Brothers Tasmanian Devil character. I've just been watching some of his cartoons this week, actually, because our little Tasmanian Devil is quite endangered down here for various reasons. And yes, he does look a fierce little creature, but yes, and we love the state. It's a beautiful state here. We have a lot of beautiful forests and waterfalls and all sorts of things. So yes, we moved here nearly 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years in August, and we're loving it down here.
Well,
so it's exciting.
As I said, I was so excited to have you, and I'm just like, okay, what do we talk about first? Did we talk about our new book? Did we talk about the puppets? Did we talk about everything? We talked about all of our other books. It's like, I was so excited I could barely contain myself. So let's start at the beginning. Deep breath. Okay. Why children's books? I mean, I know you said in the bio, but I want to dig a little deeper. Why do children's books fascinate you? Because you tell really great stories.
Oh, thank you. As I said originally, I was assisting in classrooms, and I noticed when children got to about the 9 to 10, 11 perhaps age level, that a lot of them were struggling with their reading. So while a number were confident readers, the other kind of half weren't. And my late husband and I always used to volunteer in schools when our girls were growing up, helping with reading programs. I was always a reader and writer at school. Like, I had a friend when I was 8 years old, and her dad used to buy Reader's Digest, and she would pass the copies on to me to read when he was finished with them. So I've been a lifelong reader, and over the years I wrote lots of little stories, and I had an original idea for a story way back in 2013, and it was going to be a story about a little boy who's had an injury, and he's home from school recovering, and he's bored, so his mum drops him off at the local library to spend some time there. And while he's at the library, he meets this mystery librarian who reads stories to him. Well, that story actually then evolved from being an 8-year-old boy to being an 11-year-old girl and her best friend who do time travel fantasies. And that became my first middle grade novel. They're all historically researched, and it's a bit of fun. I wanted to teach children a bit of history, like in a fun way, but also to enthuse them to want to read. Right. Because sometimes children find it, oh, do I have to read this? Do I have to do that?
Well, and I think this is where you and I connect so well, because we kind of set up our books to grab their attention, keep them moving very quickly through the book, to hold them to reading and make reading a little more exciting instead of just a string of words put together that they have to figure out. We don't want it to be a puzzle. We want it to be a fun adventure. And I love that. I love that about your books. So your books are offer Super Sleuth, The Case of the Missing Mogies, book 1. That's a new one. And then you have the ones that you just spoke about, which is Harriet and the Seven Rings, which is book 1, Harriet and the Secret Librarian, which is book 2, and Harriet and the Secret Coins, which is book 3. And then you have another one that is Enchanted, Things That Go Bump. So what age group are they all recommended for the same middle grade age group, or for different ages?
No, they're different age groups. The Harriet series is for 8 to 12-year-olds. Mm-hmm. The one that's called Bump was actually a compilation from 34 Australian authors, and I have 2 stories in it. So okay. It's a flip book. It's written half one way and half, you turn it around, it's written half the other way. Okay. And I have 2 fun stories in there. And the stories that are in there are encompassing for children in the 6 to 12-year age group. Mm-hmm. My R First series is designed for readers who are 7 to 11 years of age.
Okay, so more of
so
more of a transition of an early reader from the picture.
Yeah, book. Yeah, exactly. It's not quite as simple, I suppose, as an early reader. A little bit for slightly more confident readers, but mm-hmm. lower than middle grade style reading, which is 30,000 plus words. This one's about 10,500 words.
Right. Well, and it was very exciting when I was reading through it. So what will you hope that readers gain from your books? I mean, if you want to talk about them individually, or do you just want to talk about them overall?
Overall, I suppose the themes are good triumphing over evil, and doing the right thing, and yes, the winner at the end of the day is the hero in the story or whatever. but yeah, I'm hoping that children would take away those themes of teamwork and resilience. Resilience has been a big thing. It's probably the same in the US. In our schools here, resilience has been a big thing in recent years, teaching children to be resilient against bullying and all sorts of things. And that's kind of what I've tried to bring in as well, how these characters get to be resilient and how they deal with various things. I know with the Harriet series, in the first book, she starts off being 10 and she turns 11, and her best friend is also 11. They've been best friends since they're in what we call kindergarten here in Australia, from about 5 years of age. Mm-hmm. But she has this perpetual bully that follows her through school. Now, it was based on a bully I had in elementary school who actually ended up in high school before she moved away. And because I was assisting in schools where bullying became such a big issue, I thought, okay, let's bring this into the storyline as well, and see how we go with that. And I really have Harriet having some moments of conscience where she wants to do something, and she hears her mother's voice in her head saying, now, is this really the right thing to do? How should you treat other people? So that's kind of the line that I've gone down, I suppose. Yeah, standing up for doing the right thing, but also trying to have a bit of fun at the same time with the story.
Right. Yes. And I just love them. I'm always so excited when you mention you're working on a notebook, so I can go out and grab a copy of it and read it. And I'm going to have to get the Harriet series, because I didn't really know about that one. I think I found the third one, but I didn't know about the other two. So I'll have to go and get my copies for my library. So if you could go all the way back to the beginning when you started, what do you think you wish you had known or that someone had told you about writing and publishing?
I think probably not to give up, because it's a long road. I went to a writers' conference in 2019 here, and it was up in Sydney. And one of our very well-known Australian children's authors, she's a middle grade author, she has a great couple of series of books, she said, don't expect anything in less than 10 years after you start writing. So this is the 8th year of writing for me. So I figure I've only got 2 years to go. So sometimes people can get disillusioned. You think nothing's happening, or you have setbacks, and you think, well, is the book ever going to get out there? And have I lost my mojo, and do I keep writing? But it's that not giving up. And I think I've tried to give that with my characters in my books too. They persist in what they're doing. They're not giving up. They're pushing through whatever the issue is they've got. I was asked to submit an article, and I haven't done it at this stage, a children's magazine recently, on the theme of what keeps you motivated. So I'm thinking that one through to write up as an article.
There you go. And we were going to ask you that. What keeps you motivated? So you feel like sharing with us, or do we have to wait for this article to come out?
No, well, this article will be in a local children's, I get a fortnightly digital children's magazine here. The lady who runs it is a former publisher, but she's been in the children's kid lit industry for many, many years. And she gets guest authors to write pieces. So that one will appear here. But I guess the motivation is, if I'm feeling like I'm lagging or something's happened, and I'll see something, a news item will come up, or something funny, or something I've been thinking about, and it'll come up and think, that's exactly what I've been thinking about. And so the motivation is here, and I'll scribble something down, and I think, oh, I need to write this down or I'll forget it. and sometimes I have an idea in the middle of the night. I often get ideas in the middle of the night, and I wake up in the morning and think, oh, I have to remember that, because that's a really good. And so that's the motivation to keep going, is there's those ideas. And people say to me, oh, I loved your book, or I love this, or I love that. And you think, okay, there's the motivation to keep going. And you did mention book reviews. I'm actually a book reviewer for both Goodreads and Amazon, but I've also signed up for the children's magazine I just mentioned. She was looking for book reviewers recently. So I've signed up, and the author sends me their new release for review. I post it off to the magazine, they print it, and then I can also put that on Goodreads and Amazon, or wherever else they want it.
See, perfect example, and it gets you a lot more notice. So I want to know, what do you think readers will think of your books in 10 to 20 years?
That's an interesting concept. I really hope that they will be the sort of books that they will love, and they will stand the test of time, and they will read to their children at that stage. That's having you mentioned, that I've actually got 7 grandchildren, and they range in age from 21 down to 3 years of age. And now I have the second little great-grandchild. He's 5 months old and his big sister's about to turn 2 next week. And so I sent a copy of Arthur to my 8-year-old granddaughter last year for her birthday, just after it came out, and she loved it. And she's quite a good little reader. And I was staying with them last month. No, I was staying with them in March, and I was using her room, and I tidied up her bookcase, and we looked at all the books together, and we were reading together. And I said, wow, you're now the right. She brought Arthur out to proudly show me that she'd read it and she loved it. And I said, well, you're now old enough to read my other series. So I gave her the Harriet series, and she looked at it and she said, oh, these have got more words. And I said, just read it a little bit at a time and you'll get through it. But yeah, so that's part of it, is knowing that they enjoy what I've put out for them to read, hopefully. And if I can also review books and give people a positive spin on a book that I've enjoyed without it making it sound too personal, this is a good book because of this, and this. Hopefully they can get something out of it.
Absolutely, because I know when I buy anything, I always look at the reviews. I look at the good reviews, I look at the bad reviews, and I look at the middle reviews, because I want to know what caught their eye and what they weren't so happy about, because that might be something that interests me, just not them. So I look at all the reviews, so they don't necessarily have to be good reviews. So we're going to shift gears just a little bit here and talk about the puppets. I think you and I met over books, and then I was doing something one day with a video on, I believe it was on Facebook, with your puppets, and I just reached out and I'm like, could you please make me a puppet?
Yeah, I do little snippets on Facebook occasionally of different puppets doing things, and it's been 32 years now since I've actually got my very first puppet here to show you. I made him back in 1991 and he's still holding together. He's been a very popular puppet, and this is Nutley. He was based on a dog we had at the time, but he's a very skinny version of the dog that we had. We have a breed of dog here, a sheepdog called a Kelpie, and they are often black and tan. And the dog that we had was a crossbreed. She was a crossbreed Kelpie and an Australian red or blue heeler. And she was the greatest dog. Anyway, I wanted to make this puppet, and I sat down and designed a pattern. And he's been used many times. I'm a failed sheepdog. I'm a failed sheepdog. He goes to sleep when he's supposed to be minding the sheep, and the farmers paid so much money to have this dog trained. It's not funny. Our dogs are worth quite a lot of money, but I thought I'd make him so he actually can hang around my neck. He has Velcro on his legs, and we can look at each other in the face like this. And and I've taken him all over the place and posed him with pictures. He does his own kind of thing. So he's the oldest puppet I have, and he's still going, which is amazing. He's had a few repairs along the way, but he's still there.
Well, I know that you made my first puppet of my characters. These are newer ones that you made for me behind me. But I remember the first event that I went to with my puppets, and it's like we weren't getting a lot of people stopping. It was at a festival, and it's kind of like a book candy store. And so I pulled out the puppet and I walked out in front, and I just started an argument with Simon, my rat behind me, about who was going to hold the microphone and who they were actually there to see, whether they were there to see me for writing the story, or they were there to see him because he was the star of the story. And I kid you not, it created a crowd big enough that the festival sent security to see what was going on, because all the traffic flow had stopped. And so I just love these puppets. They are so amazing, and they really do draw the kids in. And I think they draw the adults in, and they always want to get their picture taken with them.
It's always the adults just as much. I have he's waiting for a makeover at the moment, but I have a very large teddy bear puppet who's perpetually 6 years old. And there's a 6-year-old boy puppet, bear. He makes his share of mistakes, and the adults love him quite often just as much as the kids. I had an 80-year-old lady at a workshop one day. She was going to take him home. She wasn't going to give him back.
Yes. I've had that too. It's like the kids want to take them home. So I do want to mention that you do make these puppets as props for authors. They are a one-off thing. You're not making a lot of them for them to sell. So I mean, you talked a little bit about making them for so long. So how did you get started and then kind of work into telling our audience how they can reach out to you if they're an author or writer and they would like to have a puppet made?
Okay. As I said, I started back in 1991. I was going to schools in our local church and doing kids' stories and things, and I really wanted some puppets to use. I was also doing a course at that time, a children's course, and one of the presenters had little hand puppets that he'd made, and I really wanted that as a visual aid, as a way of presenting that would be effective. Anyway, I investigated what was available, and they were very big, very heavy half-body puppets, and they were very expensive, which I couldn't afford. And I thought, well, there must be another way around this. And I had been plugged into Sesame Street with my little brother, who's much younger than I am, and then the Muppets in the 70s and 80s. And I used to put on puppet shows in the street when I was 10 years old for the other kids. My grandmother bought me a set of little hand puppets. And I thought there must be something I can buy that's easy to just stand in a classroom. I don't need a theatre. I can sit the puppet on a lectern or something like that. So I found a book in I think in a craft shop or a bookstore on making little Muppet style puppets, mouth operated puppets. And I've been sewing since I was 12. My grandmother was a costume maker, so I've inherited her flair for sewing. So I sat down with these patterns and enlarged them and adapted them, and then added they weren't all full-bodied puppets. And I developed my very first full person-bodied puppet. And I took it to show the lecturer at this course I was doing, and he was amazed. And so that was my encouragement to, she was actually based on my grandmother, and I still have her. And he really encouraged me to keep going. And he said, yeah, you know, that's great what you're doing. So quite often the puppet can say outrageous things that you can't as a human. And the children will remember much more of what the puppet is presented than you have quite often. Over the years, I have used puppets in various situations, and especially with children with special needs. And there was one place where I was helping out with a children's club on a monthly basis, and I'd pull up in the car, and this little boy would come up to me, and this little special needs boy, and he'd race up to me and he'd say, have you got so-and-so, whatever the puppet was, in your bag? Because you remembered from when I'd been there 4 or 5 weeks earlier. Mm-hmm. So that's really special. I've had people come to me to make them puppets to help children with autism, to socialise them, and people who have come to me they've had children with speech problems. Again, the puppet helps to help them. I've actually just recently sent off a group of puppets for educational purposes to Victoria here in Australia. It's a school that has a superhero program, and they embody various things like critical thinking, and embodying certain things to empower the kids, I guess. Right. So they came to me and wanted this series of little superhero puppets, and got two of each character to teach your kids. So that's the sort of thing that has all sorts of applications, really, should I say. Yep.
Right. And you do have different sizes. So where can they reach out to you if they would like to have a puppet? And you can make them literally from illustrations. In fact, on your contact page, I noticed there's an illustration from my book of Simon and the puppet that you made him. And I was just like, oh, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. And I try and make the character as close to the illustration as possible. So my puppet website is www.clewer, CLEWER, puppets, all one word, lowercase, .com. So there's a contact form on there that comes to my email, and I usually get back to people straight away. People will contact me and say, okay, can you do this? Can you do that? How much for this? How much for that? And I'll have a look at it, have a look at their illustration or what they want. I also do soft toy repairs and that sort of thing, and I do puppet conversions. And I've picked this fellow up from a thrift store where I volunteer, and if you can see, he's got Dirty Rat written on his shirt, and he's going to be a character in my upcoming fur book, and I'm thinking about converting him into a puppet. He's going to be one of the not so savoury characters in the new book.
I love it. I love it. And so just for our listeners, you don't need to go run a pen and paper to write that down. We will have the links to clewerpuppets.com for you in the show notes. Of course, we'll have links to all of her books and to her website and all of her social media. But I want to know, after writing all of these books and meeting all these amazing authors with your puppets, what advice would you offer to other authors and writers?
In terms of you using their puppets, do you mean, or their writing, or
what would be your best advice that you could offer to any of them?
Go wild with your imagination. Imagination is unlimited. Whatever you dream, you can do it and you can have it. I've had some pretty outrageous requests over the years for certain puppets that have worked, but also persist with your writing. Don't give up on your dreams. And sometimes it's easy to feel down. And I've noticed a few other authors have mentioned at times, I've got a writer's block, or I don't know what to do, and I've got so far and I can't get any further. Have a break, put it down, put it away, whether it's 4 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever, and then come back to it, look at it with a fresh mind, perhaps start something else in the meantime, which I've done at times. I've put something aside. I've had some other projects I've been working on, and I've thought, oh, now where do I go? So I've just put it aside, given it a rest. In fact, I had one series sitting there for 12 months and I hadn't revisited, and I decided to rewrite and send it back to my editor after making several changes. And I was glad that I'd given it that 12-month rest in between, because I needed to make some changes. Certain things happened in the meantime. I thought, oh, I could include those in the book as events and change some of the things that the characters have done, and also focus more on some of the characters that I brought in that didn't come in until maybe chapter 6 in the book, and they should have been right at the beginning. So I was glad I left it aside for 12 months to do that, to give me a pause to think about, okay, where do I go with this now, and what's the best way for it, and send it off to my editor, and she says, yes, I agree, this is good. So, we have a great working relationship. So, yeah, just sometimes you need that.
Yeah, and I talk about that all the time. It's like, we have what we want our timing to be with the books, but sometimes the timing is when it's right. And so that sometimes means that you do have to set it aside. But I did want to touch on one thing that you mentioned there. You get requests for all kinds of strange things. And we talked about this in the green room, how you've made puppets that are not puppet characters, what necessarily we would envision. I know that there was the big monster truck that you did. There was a piano you did, and there's been other things that you've done. It's like, I know you were working on, for one author, a big shoe or something.
Yep. Whatever people want, they can generally have, as long as it's achievable and the vision. Yeah, and it throws my brain new challenges. When I did that monster truck, that was the first time I had done a truck puppet. So that was a great exercise in drafting up the pattern, thinking the process through. Sometimes I start making things and I think, oh, it's not coming out the way I want. I'll go back and start again, or a different piece of the pattern isn't quite what I want. And actually, there's one I'm working on at the moment. I sent a fellow pictures the other day saying he's under construction. And then when I went back to it, I thought, it's not working quite the way I want. So I've done the face part again. Yeah, this one's a talking gin glass.
There you go. So yeah, there's always new and exciting stuff out there, and I'm just so amazed by your work. And if you just want to go check out her website at clewerpuppets.com, you can see the gallery of some of the puppets she's done. Trust me, there are so many more, but it was amazing to look at that gallery. So we've been talking about reviews in this season, so I want you to pick one of your books and write a review.
Oh, can I write a review? I don't. Sit down, buckle up, and enjoy the ride for an exciting adventure with Persian cat detective Arthur and his driver and cousin chauffeur as they travel the streets of London, chasing the nefarious criminal rat Retho, who constantly escapes capture. Can they find him? Can they bring him back to Australia? Can they arrest him? What will happen? Who will be involved? Grab the book and see.
I love it.
Top of my head without sitting down and writing it.
That is an amazing review. And the reason I'm having my guests do that this season is because we want to let other authors, writers, and readers know that that's how easy it is. If an author can just pick it off right like that in just a few seconds, then anybody can write one. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be simply, I love this book, or this book spoke to me for this reason. It doesn't have to be complicated. So I want to know what's next.
What's next? Well, I've had a few irons in the fire at the moment. I started working on this first series back in 2020, and at the same time I started working on another series called the Groovy Grannies Super Snooper Squad. Now, this involves 4 grandmothers and their grandchildren who solve little local mysteries. And it's actually been now fully edited. I sent it away to a couple of publishers, didn't hear back from them, so I'm thinking, okay, so I'm now thinking about what I do with that one in the future. This lady's actually one of the grandmas. She's the first one. Each one will feature one of the grandmas in a different mystery. So this is Merle McCluskey. Hello there, my dear. Nice to see you. And Merle, as you can see, has very red hair. She loves leopard skin. Everything's leopard skin with Merle. She even has her glittery gold shoes. And, oh, you're twisting my leg, dear. I'm sorry. I'll have to go to yoga now. And Merle has a very mischievous dog, and there's a good reason for him to be mischievous in the first series, in the first book. So I'm planning. I actually made the 4 puppet characters before I started writing the series in 2020. And some of them, one of them is based specifically on a very good friend of mine who calls herself a crazy cat lady. She has 5 cats. So each book will feature one of those grandmothers with a mystery with their grandkids, but they all join together. So it's a bit like, I don't know if you're familiar with Enid Blyton's The Secret 7 series, where the team work together to solve mysteries. Well, it's a bit like that, but across the generation gap. So it's grandparents and grandchildren working together to sort out these little local mysteries. So the first one is done, and I'm waiting to find a home for it. And it's called The Missing Ingredient Mystery, where Merle enters a cooking contest for the first time in her life. And there's a few little twists and plots regarding her naughty dog and other people in the town where she lives. So I'm waiting to do something with that one. As I say, there's another 3 books in the series that I've actually outlined the plots for, and I've actually started writing some of the storylines for those. And one inspired me last year. I had a fall and had a double ankle fracture, and when I went into hospital, there were 4 of us ladies with broken feet in the hospital ward. And so I've been inspired to write one of these grandma stories called The 4-Foot Mystery, where there will be a dance competition, and a mystery person who wants to win at all costs is going to cause all sorts of havoc in the town.
Oh no. So I love this. And then in this off-fur book that we've been talking about, that's the first in the series. So when can we expect the next one?
Right. Well, I'm already up to chapter 13 in the next one, and it's called The Case of the Crooked Chocolate Chef. It involves Retho once again, and Arthur is, in the first book, he's called to London. Retho escapes. Actually, Arthur was introduced in the Things That Go Bump book back in 2018, where he was chasing Retho in a story called The Great Cheddar Chase. And Retho was stealing big wheels of cheese for a bulldog he was working for. And Retho escapes and he gets away. Now, the inspiration for that story came from an island in Australia called Lord Howe Island, where my husband and I went for a holiday in 2018. There had been a shipwreck on this island back in 1918, and black rats had escaped. And as of 2018, 100 years later, they were still having a rat plague on that island of these black rats, and there was a big eradication process going on. We visited the local museum, and there was a very funny cartoon, which was sad at the same time, because those rats eradicated a lot of the native population animals that were there. But there was a funny picture of this rat sitting at a table with his chef's outfit on and serving up these animals. And I suddenly had this idea for this crazy rat criminal who keeps escaping. So in that bump things that go bump book, Arthur has him, but he gets away. And then he escapes to London, where he ends up in this book, and he gets called over to chase him because the Prime Minister's 2 prize rat and mouse catchers have gone missing. And now you know what happens at the end of this book. So the next mystery, the next adventure is coming up. He's still chasing Ratho, and we visited, my husband and I visited a motor museum last year where there was a great funny cartoon of a rat tearing around on a motorbike with bulging eyes and things, and I'm thinking, this is inspiring me for more. When I sent this off to the publisher, she kept coming back to me saying, this character's so evil, you need to write more into the chapter, show how evil it is. that was a brain stretch. So I'm really playing on that aspect. So there's that in the works. There's the Grannies one in the works that I'm hoping to do something with as well. Actually, in the last 2 weeks, I've had 2 short stories published in other people's anthologies. One is a middle grade story that I wrote back in 2019. When I was working in the elementary school, we ran a breakfast club where children could come and get breakfast. And there was a young boy who assisted me for the 3 years I was there, and his name was Jackson. And Jackson said to me one day, could you write a story about me, please, Mrs. Clewer? Now, Jackson's favourite snack was toast spread thickly with jam, and he had this dog. So I wrote this funny story about him and his dog, and his toast and jam, and it's kind of inspired by one of our authors here who writes really quirky stories. His name is Paul Jennings. So it's a quirky story about this boy and his dog and a race that the dog goes in. Well, that was accepted for publication this year, and it's just come out in the last 2 weeks. It's in with adult stories, but it is a middle grade story. And then another author friend was putting together some young adult stories, and I hadn't written young adult before, and she said, oh, come on, you can do it, you're a writer. So I sat down, and it's called A Glimmer of Uncommon Fairy Tales, and so the brief was that people could either retell a lesser-known fairy tale or write a new one. So I actually sat down and wrote a new folk kind of slash fairy tale for the young adult market that's come out in that book. So I've had a few irons in the fire and still thinking other things through. Yeah.
Well, and you and I are just so both alike, where we're just constantly busy and way more ideas than we'll probably ever write in our lifetime. But I love that. And I'm so excited. And of course, as soon as any of that is out and you have links to it, please let us know, and we will add that to your interview episode in the show notes, so that everyone else can check it out.
Well, the other one is I've actually started writing a 4th Harriet book too, because my editor said to me, when are you going to put out another Harriet book? Then the last one came out in September 2019, and I thought, I don't know. I hadn't kind of thought about it. And then I visited a maritime centre here in Tasmania where there was a book about shipwrecks, and I got really interested in that. And then at the beginning of this year, my husband and I went to an historic property that's not far from where we live. And it was a failed sheep farm from the 1800s. And I thought I could combine these 2 stories in another historical time travel adventure
there
for
you
Harriet
go.
and her friend.
I love it. So where can we find your books?
Okay. At the moment, the Harriet series is only available as a paperback, but I am working on getting it out as an ebook. I'm actually thinking about... that's the 3rd one in the series, which is focused on the gold rush. And they go back in time and visit 3 gold rush. And there's a mystery, and there's a mysterious lady, which was based on a legend at a real gold mine here in Australia. And I wrote to the gold mine and said, look, I'm writing this book. Could I use this legend? And they said, go for it. Nobody's ever claimed the legend. So please feel free to use it. So at the moment, they're available as paperbacks from my website, which is www.clewerbooknook.com. I had a look yesterday. I've got a few copies left. I'm actually thinking about getting some reprints. I may redo the covers too. But yes, I'm working on getting that out as an ebook. So these ones are $11. It works out about $10 US plus the shipping, and the shipping I have to get calculated as they're packed up. So yeah.
But you can go to her website and see all of the books. You can also get Offer, but Offer is also available on Amazon. Is that correct?
Yes. He's available on Amazon as both an ebook. They do have some print books. They're available from my website, Clewer Book Nook, as a print book. They're also available from morrispublishingaustralia.com as a print book. And yes, so, you can easily get the ebook on Amazon as well.
Awesome. So I know you're on social media. We talked about that, and you have a social media page where they on Facebook, but where else can they reach you and under what name?
Okay, I'm on Twitter at Debra Clewer.
Mhm.
I'm on Pinterest. I'm on Instagram. It's Clewer5858. I'm on Pinterest. Now I think that one's also Clewer58. You've got the link there anyway.
Yes, I will list all the links for you.
And I have the two Facebook pages. There's the puppet page, Clewer Puppets, and there's the Debra Clewer author page, or it's under D Clewer author on Facebook.
Okay, great. Well, again, we'll always list those for you in the show notes. So was there anything else that you wanted to share with the audience about any kind of upcoming events or any giveaways, newsletter signups, or subscriptions that you want to share with the audience?
I'm actually thinking through that process at the moment of having a giveaway within the next couple of months. I'm just thinking about how I do it from here, because it's something I haven't done before, but it's always suggested, and Goodreads always suggests having an author giveaway. So I'm thinking about that, because I'm both a Goodreads author and reviewer. So I'm thinking about, okay, I might like to go with a giveaway while I'm working on this second book. Once I've got that out and ready, I might have a whole launch process and give away for that one. The launch for this one last year happened at our local library here. I'm thinking I might have an online launch when the next one comes out, and then I can have a book giveaway attached to that, hopefully. Yeah, unfortunately, as you know, with going and visiting and things, it took me a while to get over my broken foot, but also COVID put a stop to a lot of visits, going and doing things in schools and whatever. So I'm just kind of getting back into the flow of things at the moment this year, just seeing how I go with what I've got to offer and what I can do in the future, and hopefully more that will be out there.
Okay, great. Well, we do encourage you to go to clewerbooknook.com to check out what's going on with Debra about her books and those that are available. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go to our tip of the week?
I think Ratho's trying to steal the limelight. It's an evil. Go away.
I love it. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get over to our tip of the week. So our tip of the week, we're going to dovetail that with Debra's thoughts and information here. And I think the biggest theme that we talk about with her is never give up. And it's a great tip. It's a great tip for all authors and writers, for anyone out there. Never give up. You're always going to run into obstacles and stumbling blocks. That's what makes us important. We learn more from messing up and making mistakes than we ever do from being perfect. Look at her examples of how she comes up with these stories, the things that make her books better each time she looks at them from a different angle. And be patient. We always say Rome wasn't built in a day, and this is a perfect example. Sometimes it takes a while. But the lovely thing that I always like to tell people is once your book is out there, it's out there for your lifetime and beyond. We don't have to be a best-selling author the first year or even the 10th year. Eventually, it will happen. So as long as you tell a great story and you don't give up, I think you're on the right track. So that's our tip of the week. Of course, we want to thank Debra for joining us. Thank you, Debra, for inspiring us. Thank you so much for these amazing puppets that help us bring our stories to life. Was there anything else that you'd like to say before we go ahead and close out this episode of The Writer's Parachute?
No, thank you very much, Donna, for having me on. But yes, I'd just like to reinforce what you said. Don't give up. Keep going forward. If you feel like you're going to fall down a little bit, have a rest and come back to it. It's inspiration is fun, imagination is fun. I've always been accused of having an overactive imagination as a child. I was an only child until I was 12, so I created my own entertainments. So it's continued.
Well, yes, and I agree with it. And as always, we say here at the Writer's Parachute, if you're scared, be sure to pack your parachute. It'll save you every time. And as always, I am so grateful to be the host here at the Writer's Parachute, guiding author and writer dreams to a perfect landing. And we hope that you find this space, a creative space to land your dreams as well. Until next time, bye.